Hi everyone, my name's Dylan Norfield and I'm a mad plant collector. I know there's a lot of us are like that, so I know you could say it was a problem, but I think there's a lot worse problems that you can have. So I first got into plants 40 years ago at the age of 12. Yes, I know that photo is not of me of 12, but I was a lot cuter then than I was at 12 and certainly a lot cuter than I am now. So that's why I've put that picture in. So yeah, my mad plant collection started with a hippeastrum bulb. So I knew it as amaryllis at the time. It was one of those amazing giant bulbs that came through the post, and I looked at it and you just knew that it was going to burst into life. And that's what sort of started my love of plants. The problem was, it's not the plant that I thought I would have started with, but yeah, it sparked something in me. But of course, then I went and planted it into the ground in English summer. Of course, wet conditions just rotted away, and that was it. That was my fleeting glance with amaryllis or hippeastrum bulbs. I've actually got one back in the garden again now, and of course, in New Zealand they'll grow outside, but back in the UK they wouldn't. You could say, did I have a choice about getting into horticulture? Yeah, my mum and dad had a plant nursery, so I was brought up with plants. Grandparents were garden mad. So all of my life I was surrounded with plants, especially Japanese maples, and they're still an interest of mine today. So yeah, so did I have a chance or was I easily led or just lazy and just decided? But something sparked in me that horticulture was what I wanted to do from a very young age. So I feel lucky that that was the case. Next came carnivorous plants, and this is actually my collection of Sarracenia that I have today. I still love carnivorous plants, and who doesn't like a plant that catches its prey and dissolves it away, eats it through enzymes? There's just something about carnivorous plants that often attract people into horticulture, especially youngsters, and I just think it's such a good plant to start people off on to spark that enthusiasm. So I did a degree in biological science ecology in the UK and mainly studied habitat reconstruction and UK native plants. Especially, I really got interested in ferns and fern species and did my thesis on ferns. And so I loved fern species, which New Zealand is a great place to study ferns. But my interest was always in exotics and actually grew a lot of New Zealand native plants in the UK. Biggest problem with New Zealand native plants in the UK is a lot of them die in the winter. We get much harsher winters, so even cordylines are often cut back by the hard frosts and the winter wet. And the other big problem in the UK, especially with when I was growing Norfield species, was grey squirrels. Grey squirrels are an absolute pest, and they actually loved ring barking and stripping all the bark off Norfagus. So they were always a pest and something that we had to keep on top of. But then from that, the biggest part of my career in the UK was the Royal Horticultural Society shows around the country. So Chelsea, Hampton Court, and all of those shows. So this is a maple display that I did for one of the shows in the UK. And the following is a clip of Chelsea Flower Show that was on TV in the UK. And Chelsea was actually one of my least favourite shows because you had to drive a giant truck into the middle of London. So we actually used to do quite a small display at Chelsea, whereas the other shows you could do much larger displays.
Thank you, Gwen.
Next, Japanese maples. Joe got an insight into how these oriental treasures are prepared for Chelsea.
I was in the office the other day and I heard whisperings of Japan and I thought, Swifty, get your passport out. And then I heard mutterings of maples and I thought, no, it's Canada for you, mate. Then they gave me a set of car keys and a map of Wales. Sussed it. It's about Japanese maples in Wales. Set in the beautiful Monmouthshire countryside, Norfield's nursery has been quietly growing trees and shrubs here for the last 9 years. Most of the energy spent running the 40-acre site is dedicated to growing their medal-winning acers, otherwise known as Japanese maples. Dylan Norfield joined his parents' business and has turned the acer into an art form. I'm a huge fan of maples, you know, I put them in a lot of small gardens, they seem to fit perfectly.
That's right, they're great for the small garden or a larger garden.
Yeah, there's big variety, isn't there, size-wise?
Yeah, there's a huge range of different leaf shapes and sizes. The leaves can vary from small leaves up to much broader leaves, reds, yellows, oranges.
I think most people just think of the Acer palmatum dissectum, you know, the little one.
That's right. Yeah, that's probably the widest known one, because anyone could grow it in their garden or on a patio in a pot.
Yeah. Well, coming on to pots as well, you know, I think people get really worried because, you know, they think they're going to get scorched, they think they're going to get wind burnt, they're worried about them, and they sort of halfway through the summer dry out a little bit.
That's right.
Is that the main problem that people have?
It is mainly the problem is drying out in the summer. As you can see here, we grow them all out in the open, in the middle of fields, full sun, full wind, but we do have to water them if there is a dry spell.
Well, that just amazes me, you know. You've got wind ripping through here.
That's right, we got full northeast wind that comes up through the valley.
That seems to go against everything that I've ever read in a textbook, but they look so healthy. So it is all about water.
It is all about water, plenty of summer moisture, but not too wet in the winter.
Okay, I'll remember that one. Now, most of the maples that you buy down the garden centre have been grafted onto a rootstock.
Yeah.
But you like to grow yours from seed, right?
That's right, we do graft some of the named variety, but if you do grow them from seed, you get a wonderful different range. As you can see here, from one tree you can get a whole range of different seedlings, reds, greens and variegated ones.
Oh yeah, they're all so different, aren't they? Yeah, they're really sweet, actually. So how old are these ones then?
These ones are all seed grown. The larger red ones are about 7 to 8 years old from seed.
Really? They're pretty fast then?
They are fast as young plants.
Shows give Dylan the opportunity to charm potential customers as well as the judges with his very best specimens. He keeps a large selection to choose from prior to a show, ensuring his display is the best it can be.
Many of the trees here have been to lots of our displays around the country, and what we do every 2 or 3 years, we take them out of the pot, we chop off a quarter of the roots on 2 sides, quarter off the bottom, fresh compost and back into the same pot again.
So it's sort of half bonsaiing them.
That's right, but just on a larger scale.
Yeah.
And this is a mock-up of our display for Chelsea.
Wow, they look fantastic next to each other, don't they? They really set each other off nicely. But how do you go, you know, creating a composition like this?
Each one needs to have a space around it. It's like a jigsaw. Each one's put in place, different leaf shapes, different colours.
So how do you get on at Malvern this year?
We got a gold.
You got a gold.
I was very pleased with that. It's the first time I've had a gold at Malvern Spring.
Right, and you've had 4 golds before at Chelsea and 1 silver gilt. So does
That's
the pressure just build up more and more every year?
It does get worse each year, but the trees look good this year.
Yeah, they certainly do. I mean, I'm amazed you're so blasé. You just leave them out here to fend for themselves. You know, wind gushing through here.
The larger ones are tied in, but we leave them outside to get the good colour, much better colours outside.
But how do you think you're going to do at Chelsea with this?
Well, the trees look good. I'm pleased with it, so I'd hope to get a gold.
What do you mean, hunting gold? Are you going to get a gold or not? You should know by now.
I'll wait and see.
Well, there's a smile on his face this morning. Dylan did indeed get that gold medal. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I was pleased.
And you know, what's interesting, I've been counting up the amount of plants on your stand. There are just 12 Japanese maples here. Some people might think you've got to grow gazillions of plants to get a gold at Chelsea. You've got a gold for just 12 Japanese maples.
That's right, it's the quality, not the quantity that counts.
And the way they're staged as well. How old are these plants?
And they vary from about 5 to about 20 years old.
So you've been growing them a fair old while before you get them to this stage. There are tremendous variations now in Japanese maples, far more than there used to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember growing what we used to call Acer japonicum aureum, the lovely slow-growing yellow one, which is now called
Acer Shursuranum aureum.
Because as the Japanese maples, we have to allow Japanese
That's
names,
right.
don't we? But your favourite, see, there's a lovely one here I noticed called Fine Joe. Is that after Joe Swift?
It's not, unfortunately. It's named after my wife. It's just a selected form that we selected of the linolobum type, which is a lovely dwarf form.
With those really fine,
That's right.
long leaves.
Yeah.
This one I bought recently, I've not seen before, Shishigashira, looks almost as though it's had a perm with its leaves really tightly packed on the stem.
That's right, it's quite unique, isn't it? And lovely dark foliage.
You're also selling seeds here, Dylan, packets of seeds.
That's right. What we do is we don't allow the seed to dry out. We give it the cold treatment and keep it moist, because drying it out can affect the germination of it.
And there's some actually already growing in here.
That's right. It's ready to go.
So people are getting how many seeds for how much?
They get about 20 seeds in a packet for £3.
Good Lord, that's cheap, isn't it, really? But can they come true from seed, these fine leaf varieties?
We select from specific trees that do produce 95% true to form. You might get the odd rogue one, but most of them, the ones we sell, are pretty good.
What a bargain. Give me 20 years, and with these seeds in here, I'll be back to compete.
All right.
I don't think. Congratulations. Now, Dermot always says how much he loves his trees, but as there's not a single one in his garden, we sent him around the grounds to get reacquainted.
So as you can see from that video, the shows were quite a big part of my UK career. And from this picture, you can see that we used to grow about 50,000 grafted Japanese maples, mainly of the dissected low-growing ones, because that was the one that was the bread and butter plant that people love to grow in the UK. Most people have got small gardens, and it's just the best plant for a small garden. But we also loved growing seedlings. So we grew about 50,000 seedlings of rare trees and shrubs. My father Andrew collected seed, and he got seed from all over the world. So from China, and a lot of species that we introduced into the horticultural world were in the Western world, hadn't been there before. So there's a lot of new species that we introduced as a nursery. I took this picture because this happens to be a picture of my maples at home that just happened to be in my driveway. And there's something very familiar about it compared with those pictures of the shows in the UK. So I obviously still have some tendency to like to display the trees like we used to in the pots. Perhaps not as well done, but still it's quite funny to see it back at home and see what it looked like. So a lot of the species that we showed in the UK were maple species. So, and this is just some of the ones that we love to show. Acer micranthemum is one of the snakebark maples, beautiful snakebark maple with that orange autumn colour. Acer olivianum, so that's doesn't look much in this picture, but the spring colour is a beautiful red new growth and amazing orange autumn colours. Acer pentaphyllum in the middle there, stunning rare maple with that lovely fine foliage, long linear foliage. Incredibly rare in the wild. It's actually critically endangered, but we're very lucky in New Zealand because there's several plants that actually set seed, so it's quite readily available in the trade. And then down the bottom you've got Acer capinifolium. Used to like displaying that because it's very unmaple-like, very hornbeam-like foliage, thus Capinus capinifolium. Acer Shursuranum aureum at the top. Yeah, it's just such a good tree. You do have to find the right spot because in high light levels it can burn slightly in the foliage. And then probably my favourite is the Acer Pseudo-Subordianum down the bottom right. One of the toughest of all the maples. That beautiful foliage emerges green, stays green most year, but then forms this lovely tints into the foliage late in the summer, and then those racemes of the green seed hanging down just really stand out. Really hardy, down to about minus 25 degrees. So really tough, easygoing maple. So the biggest problem with nursery life was it was just so busy, and the only time they could get a break was in the winter. And the best place to go on holiday, of course, in the winter from the UK was New Zealand. So come down to the southern hemisphere. So in 2004, my wife and I came out to New Zealand for a holiday, and within a few days we decided it was time to change our lifestyle. And we went back, and a year later, once we'd done all the paperwork, we ended up in New Zealand. So within several days of arriving, I was offered several jobs, but they're all plant retail jobs. So places like Mitre 10 and retail. Yes, I could do retail, but it wasn't where my love was. The day I was meant to start at Mitre 10, I was offered a job at Blueskin Wholesale Nursery just north of Dunedin. And this was great because this gave me a good idea of the nursery industry and got me back to growing a whole range of new plants and just helped me, learn about New Zealand natives and the New Zealand horticultural industry. From working there, I decided really, it wasn't what I wanted to go back into at that point in time. The New Zealand market is very small and very hard, so I decided at that point that really what I'd love to do is work at the Botanic Garden. It's very hard to get into Dunedin Botanic Garden. So luckily a position came up to cover maternity leave in 2007, and I started looking after the rose and herbaceous collection. Probably the collection I knew the least about, but yeah, I developed a understanding and an appreciation of well-grown roses and herbaceous plants. Then I moved to the Geographic and Arboretum collection, which of course is where I love the plants I loved, and I loved doing that, and I did that for the next 14 years before being seconded to the curator collection supervisor position, which I'm in today. So I've been doing that now for 7 years. But what it means is I now end up sitting at the computer a lot, doing a lot of paperwork and just overseeing a lot of what's happening in the garden. What the Botanic Garden has done, though, is given me the opportunity to make a lot of contacts and go on tours and just through those contacts. So this was a trip to Yunnan province that I did in 2012, organised by Pukiti. I self-funded it because I always wanted to go there and look at the plants. So that was lucky. But I've also been on trips to Tasmania and also New Zealand native plant collecting trips for the collections here at the Botanic Garden. So these are some of the plants that I've actually got growing at home, but ones that I saw in China. So the Deutzias, these are two species, Deutzia, calicosa and purpurescens. Both of them are stunning, absolutely stunning species. And a lot of us grow cultivars, but actually the species in their own are absolutely stunning. And then the Mangalita insignis, now been changed like the Mycelia has. Mycelias, Mangalitas have all been changed to magnolias. So it's now Magnolia insignis. Again, I couldn't grow that back in the UK because it was too tender, but here it grows well. Stunning small tree, but not easy to get hold of. And then the Pictanthus has these beautiful yellow flowers. You could say it's a bit broom-like, but it doesn't seed around like broom. But yes, stunning yellow flowers in the spring, followed by all the seed pods that hang down. Some other plants, a couple that most people will be familiar with, Podophyllum hexandrum or Emodii, quite readily available in the trade often. But when you see these plants in the wild, it actually gives you more of a feeling of what conditions they like. And I don't know, it's almost emotional. So the plant, when you see the plant, then you have that emotional feeling of you seeing it in the wild and reminds you of that trip. So whenever you can get out and see these plants in the wild, it's well worth it, even for more common plants, because it does have that emotional connection. Meconopsis racemosa, one of the few blue Meconopsis that we saw in China. And there's just such classic, Himalayan blue poppies and stuff. But this is racemosa. It's hairy on the seed pods, the flowers, the leaves. Quite short-lived. Monocarpic, so once it flowers, it dies, but sets plenty of seed. And then Dipelta yananense on the right there. Stunning small shrub. Absolutely covered in those foxglove, almost like flowers in the spring, followed by papery seeds that hang down. Well worth growing, but one that's just not readily available in the trade. I also threw in the Enchanthus deflexus in the middle because it was a stunning Enchanthus. If anyone knows Enchanthus, they form lovely small shrubs, but this is a larger one to about 4 to 5 meters tall. It's one that I've not been able to get hold of in New Zealand, but I know it's here. So there was actually a plant down at Gore Public Gardens for a while, but I haven't seen it for a long time. And then some Tasmanian plants. I've been lucky enough to go to Tasmania a couple of times, and the Friends of Dunedin Botanic Garden funded me on my first trip to go and spend some time at the Royal Botanic Garden Hobart, which was amazing. Amazing connections to make for the Botanic Garden here and for myself. Couple of plants there, the Drimis and the Tasmania, both of them related to our Pseudowintera, so in that Winteraceae family, pepper tree family. Beautiful plants, especially the Tasmania. Tasmania in the cooler weathers in the summer forms a beautiful red foliage. So excellent, well worth growing. The Eucryphia in the middle. Eucryphias are stunning flower plants. They should be, again, more readily grown. They do seem to like cool climates as well, so they grow well down in Dunedin. But yeah, beautiful plant, makes beautiful honey. So levelwood honey, which is from Eucryphia lucida, well known in Tasmania, absolutely stunning. And then the Lomatias, again, not readily grown, but there's some beautiful species of Lomatia that have those white flowers in the spring. Gunnera cordifolia. So we've got our native little Gunneras, and then there's the Chilean Gunneras. But this is Gunnera cordifolia, so one from Tasmania, grows quite high up alpine areas. But yeah, loves the moisture, forms a lovely mat of that green leaf. And the Eleocarpus, that flower is stunning, that fringe flower. So grows across Victoria, I think, and some of southern Australia, and then across into Tasmania. But beautiful fringe flowers. So yeah, so this is actually a picture of our sleep out, and you can see, so been out at Doctor's Point, and this is our family garden for 19 years now, and it's just been a mad collection of plants over that time. So over 1,400 species and cultivars in an acre and a quarter. So this last year it was judged a 5-star garden of national significance by the New Zealand Gardens Trust. And we're very lucky to have the New Zealand Gardens Trust, that independent body that can go around, assess the garden, give you feedback, and actually help you to actually improve your garden, make it more visitor friendly, and a great interface for public relations, for tourists coming. So a great thing that we have in New Zealand. So this is a picture of my garden. You can see it's an eclectic mix of plants, including the purple plant on the right. That small flower is Jovelana. So there's 2 species of Jovelana there. So Jovelana violacea and Jovelana punctata, 2 South American species. Our native ones are all white flowered. But you can see the plants, there's not a huge amount of flower in my garden. Most of it is done with foliage. So a lot of different foliage colours and textures. And of course, probably the strongest collection is the maples. So a huge collection of maples, and they've got over 80 species and cultivars, especially Ace palmatum varieties. So they give great form and colour to any garden. Yes, it's probably overplanted, as you can see from this picture, but I'm a good pruner. So I spend a lot of time pruning the plants through summer pruning and winter pruning to try and give things space and shape in the garden. So every year different things get pruned back hard, some are taken up higher. My biggest problem is a lot of them are very hard to get hold of. So I can't remove something without propagating it. So some things I need to propagate before I can move them. So there's a few plants that still need to be removed, but I can't yet. So some of the plants I've got home, so Meconopsis betonicifolia, so the Himalayan poppy, probably one of the easiest growing of the blue poppies. Again, loves Dunedin's climate, that cooler summers. If you've got hotter summers, it really suffers. So it does like those cool woodlandy situations, and readily grown from seed. And then bottom left, you've got the Cardiocrinum giganteum var. So the normal cardiochroma has, which is the Himalayan lily, the giant Himalayan lily. So it gets to about 3 to 4 meters tall. This one only gets to about 1.5 meters, 2 meters maximum. And that new foliage is bright red. So that reddish tinge to the foliage, smaller in height and greener flowers. In the center is the Echium pininiana crosswheel prettii. So lots of people will be familiar with Echium pininiana with the big blue spikes of flowers. I've been playing about hybridizing them with Wilprettii, which is a Canary Island form which has red flowers and grayer foliage. So by hybridizing the two, I've got these pink forms. This one's actually multi-stem, so I think actually it's got some candicans, Echium candicans in it as well. And I'm trying to get a perennial form because all of them die after flowering. So I'll be collecting the seed from this one and growing a whole range to see what we get this next year. I also collect Aracema. It's one of those plants that people either love or hate, but I've got quite a good collection of Aracema species. This is ciliatum. This is actually one of the running species. So most of them come from a corm or a bulb underneath the ground. This one actually runs by a tuberous sort of rhizome, so pops up and covers a small area, but stunning spaves in the spring, those striped sort of pictures. I've also got a range of few conifers, so Pseudolarix there and the Taiwania. Not many conifers in my garden because it used to all be regenerating pine forests. So I got rid of all the conifers, but special mention to Pseudolarix. Pseudolarix is a stunning small deciduous conifer. If you put it in the ground in hotter climates where you get higher temperatures in the summer, it's going to grow quite vigorously. But in a pot, you can keep it to any size you want. Really tough pot grown plant. Really stunning. Beautiful yellow autumn colours. That lovely lime green foliage. I think it's a real winner for a pot because it's tough, easy going, requires little moisture, little watering or looking after. And the Beschneria tubiflora, sometimes sold as Beschneria tonnellii, but tubiflora is the official name. Much smaller than normal Yuccioides, which has the big tall spikes. So only to about 1.5 meters. The Bocaria geraldiana, so that's a South African tree. So it comes from the forest biome of South Africa. Those flowers quite unusual in shape and sticky as you touch them. So quite sticky to touch. The Salvia regula, quite a different salvia to most other salvias because it's actually woody in nature. So we'll get to about 2.5 meters tall, so much taller than most salvias, and then that really interesting flowers. So you can cut it back as more herbaceous or actually let it grow up to get taller. And then the Franklinia alatamaha, incredibly rare, completely extinct in the wild, was only seen once in the wild. Hard to get to flower in New Zealand because it needs, again, hot summers. So mine actually normally flowers late autumn, just as the frosts are coming. So if we get a frost, it kills off the flower. So I don't often see its flower. I do grow some natives in the garden as well. I'm not against native plants. I just think they're working well with the exotics. So that Quintinia serrata, a brilliant native plant, not grown that often in the garden. This is a form from northwest of the South Island area, which has bronzy coloured foliage. But you can see the flower on that. So in the spring, this spring, that was it in full flower, and it was absolutely stunning. Well worth growing as a garden-worthy plant. On the opposite side of the screen, you've got the Astelia. Astelia hastata, so that is the perching lily. So it often grows up in trees further north, but it can be terrestrial as well, so you can grow it in the ground. And I just thought that flower was absolutely stunning. So in the middle, so you've got Fuchsia splendens and the Podophyllum spotty dotty. I don't grow many fuchsias. I haven't got any cultivars, I've only got species. And this is one of the few species I do grow because I just find the flowers very interesting with that sort of green lipped end to them. And the bellbirds and tuis absolutely love them. Down the bottom of the Stuartia, so that's Stuartia terrapetulata. So that's actually one of the evergreen Stuartias. So in the, a camellia relative, those flowers are quite small, only a few centimeters across, but they start out that white and then they go to a yellow cream color as they drop to the ground, and actually leaves a carpet of the flowers across the ground. It's a beautiful group of plants, the Stewartias. And then the Calicarpas are called the beauty bushes. So there's some really good forms around the world which have blueberries all over the stems right into the autumn. We haven't got very good forms here in New Zealand, so I've been making a collection of different Calicarpa species, and this is one of them that I've been working on, and I'm hoping to hybridize them together in the future so we can have a good beauty bush that we can grow in New Zealand. Of course, I'm also selecting plants. That's my nursery background, so I'm always looking for new plants that we can bring into the horticultural industry. So the top left, that's an Ophiopogum planicarpus that I selected many years ago with that variegated foliage. I think it's got huge potential, but the problem is it's very slow to bulk up and propagate. So I've tried it in tissue culture a few times, but it's always died in tissue culture. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to get that into the industry. Top middle is a Lobelia tupa. So if anyone knows Lobelia tupa, the flowers are always a dark red. This was a seedling that came up in a seed tray with slightly yellower leaves, so I selected it out as a young plant, and to my amazement the flower was pure yellow. So quite a freak, unique plant, and I've been growing them from seed for a few years now, and they've become 100% true from seed, so pure yellow flowers. Down the bottom left is one of the Ace palmatum varieties that I've been working on. It's an incredibly variable species, and this is a beautiful one with lovely fine foliage, forms a lovely small plant, so well worth looking at for the future. Middle bottom is Stachyurus chinensis, not readily grown in New Zealand, but has racemes of green flowers that hang down off the branches. And this was again one that came up with slight yellowy new foliage, so I looked at it and kept propagating it. Then it had a variegated shoot, and I propagated from that variegated shoot until I had a nice stable plant of variegation. At the top you've got, last year I had a Primula pulverulenta come up with variegated foliage. Again, they're often weaker, so you've got to select them out as young plants and then nurse them on. But now this is producing good strong plant. It's going to be one of those plants you either love or hate. But Primulas are very short lived in their flower, so if you can have some colour all year, it adds interest to it. Same with the Magnolia campbellii there. So I selected this about 15 years ago and been again grafting shoots on it to get good stable variegation. 2 years ago it flowered for the first time, so which is about right, so about 12-13 years from seed to flower, and it has giant big pink flowers. So now in the future I can actually start at looking at probably releasing that as well. So but something different. You either love them or hate these variegated plants, but they've all got interest and probably commercial value. So back to Plant Collectors Anonymous, admitting you have a problem. Would I change it? No, I wouldn't. Is it a problem? Maybe. My family sometimes might say yes, it's a problem. I've dragged my daughter around many gardens, and we're actually wandering around a garden once, and we're looking at hellebores, Christmas roses, and we're looking at those, and she turned around and said she's hella bored. So it could be a problem. And yes, I am an addict, and yes, I'm proud of it. I think, like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of addictions you can have, but I think plants and plant collecting, there's a lot worse ones you could have out there. I think the biggest thing is, the more you learn about horticulture, the more you realize there is to learn. So it's an ever expanding thing. Once you get more involved in plant species, you realize how little you know and how much there still is to learn. I think the biggest thing though is selling it to the next generation. When I started in horticulture, and even when I came to New Zealand, I was in my early 30s. I'm getting older now. I'm not the youngster anymore, and we need to get youngsters involved in horticulture. Thank you.